I've finally driven the Michelin Cross CrossClimate2 tires over 100,000 miles, and I think this update's going to surprise you guys. Hey YouTube, my name's Jake. I wanted to update everybody because the original reason I brought the Michelin Cross CrossClimate2s was because I had a couple of uncles and a father who had driven Michelin tires for over 100,000 miles and were still driving them. And when I bought my car brand new in 2019, I had a pair of Toyo tires that came standard on here. Within the first year, I wore the tires slap off to where the red safety bands were showing. So I replaced them with a set of Michelins. Lo and behold, I've been more and more than impressed. A little bit of background. So like I said, I bought these tires 3 to 4 years ago. It was actually almost entirely accidental. I wore the tires off of my new car so quickly that I wanted to get ones that I thought would last. Funny enough though, I walked into the tire shop and told them what I was driving, and they only had one tire available for my vehicle, which was the CrossClimate2. So I sort of stumbled into using these. Anyway, I bought them on accident and started making the videos on them, and I finally crossed over that 100,000 mile goal. So I'd like to share with you how I feel. I'm going to show you the tires, pop out the tire gauge, and give my opinion to see if this might be something you'd be interesting. So I drive a Mazda CX-5. I bought it brand new. It's the front wheel drive version. I sort of drive like a grandpa, but I live in Alabama. I travel 40 to 50,000 miles a year all over the country. I can be in the north, I can be in Canada, I can be in the squelching heat in Arizona, I can be driving through the torrential rains in Alabama. So I've really gotten a good rounded idea of how these tires will act. I'd say there's at least 3 things I've loved about these tires. Like number one, without a doubt, is the grip. The moment I drove them out of the tire shop, I knew something was different. I knew I could brake faster. I noticed that when I would be going up an incline and have to turn at a stoplight, my tires wouldn't skid. But I also noticed a lot of things such as the water and snow performance, not just driving in fair weather. The water and snow performance over 100,000 has been absolutely ridiculous. For the first 2 or 3 weeks, I had to be a little bit careful because it was sort of like getting a new motorcycle. You want to see how fast it can go and how long you can pull a wheelie. And I was doing the same thing. When it would rain 2 to 3 inches in a day, I would try and find puddles I could hit at 70. Same thing in the snow. I was praying to drive up into an area with some snow so I could see how it would handle. And I had to be very careful because I was just absolutely shocked with the grip and the versatility and performance in the weather. The durability is also something which we'll see in just a second, because I'm still driving them, and I've driven 101,573 miles as of right now on these tires, which is a little bit bananas, especially coming from the stock tires that I tore up in 30,000 miles. From the moment I got them over the past 3 to 4 years, I've just been infatuated with the grip and the all-weather performance and the durability. But hey, they are Michelins. They are triple snow peak rated, but there were some things that I didn't really like that much, to be absolutely honest. The first thing I noticed when I drove them was I had almost an instantaneous loss in miles per gallon, a loss in fuel efficiency. I did a video on that, and I can link it right here just for giggles. I charted my fuel efficiency off various different metrics in mileage, and I realized that I was losing about 1.7 to 2.5 miles per gallon depending on speed. Another thing I was never a big fan of, but I've come to realize like it was a good trade-off, was the price. I could have bought another set of tires for $600-700, and I spent almost $1,400 on these tires. So these are not cheap tires. I did a little video about the noise of these tires, and I pulled out a decibel reader to actually test it scientifically. So it never was a big issue for me. Maybe it's because my car is a little newer and it has good seals, but a lot of people complained about the noise. Without further ado, those are kind of the things I've loved about it over the 100,000 miles, and I'll chirp about it a little bit later, but let's go ahead and show the tires.
All right, YouTube, so here's the vehicle, and we're going to go ahead and look at the tires. As I said, 2019 Mazda. I drive like an old man and try and treat her like a princess, so she's been good to me so far. But I wanted to show you guys the tires, and anybody who's actually been following my videos is going to notice, like, whoa, they are finally showing wear. I've done 5 or 6 long-term videos giving you regular updates on the tires, and I've done everything from tread depth measurements to performance measurements, decibel readings, pretty much everything you can think of. I noticed this about 10,000 miles or so that you could start seeing wear, but honestly, I think we're about to wear these puppies out. I don't think we're going to get 150 or maybe even 110, because you'll notice things like this. We're starting to get chips in the tires. You're going to notice that they're starting to look wore down a little bit. So this is the current state of the tires after 101,500 miles. Honestly, like I said, it's starting to kind of show some wear. By popular demand, I had a bunch of people tell me that I should probably start showing the tread depth on these, because that might be one of the easiest ways to really scientifically measure this rather than just give my opinion. So we have the trusty tread depth measure. You guys are going to be a little bit shocked because we're getting towards the end of the life of the tires, and I just realized I think I need to change them. So I like to measure the tread depth across the entirety of the tire, not just in the center, not just on the outside. So let's go ahead and give them a measure. And guys, this is going to hurt just a little bit. So going to go to millimeters, put it right here in the center, pop it down, and you're going to notice we're sitting at about 2 millimeters, which is borderline unsafe. I'm going to get a ticket. Let's do it a little bit further out, maybe right here. We're sitting at about 2.5 millimeters. Let's go out towards the edge where you can really see the wear. Guys, we're sitting at about 3 millimeters. Let's put it on a different spot on the tire so we don't just have to trust one spot. Let's go to the center right here, put the tread depth gauge down, and we're about 3. Let's put it on another corner just to make sure we're nice and even. Put tread depth down, and yeah, we're sitting at about 3 millimeters. So I'm pretty sure these are probably unsafe for driving, which means old Jake needs to go and get him a new set of tires. But the other ones have been working so well, I just haven't really noticed it, and they are finally starting to show some wear. So for everybody who wondered how I had 6 millimeters or 8 millimeters after 60,000 miles, you'll be extremely, extremely happy, because now these Michelins right here are starting to look like a wore out set of tires.
So the proof's in the pudding. These tires are not immortal. They're not going to last forever, and they're finally showing some wear. And honestly, I probably should have changed them a little while ago. I feel like they wore down. They did great for a long time, and then they wore down really quickly. I don't know if it's from my driving habits. I don't know if I've been getting a lead foot recently. I'm not really sure, but these suckers have wore down a lot in the past 20,000 miles or so. They were entirely safe. You can check out my old videos, and I had 6, 7, 8 millimeters on them. And now I'm at risk of getting a ticket if anybody pulls me over and measures that specific tire. Just a little update. I told you why I loved them at first, but I'd like to give you a few updates on how I feel. But you know, the proof was in the pudding, and if you look at those tires, it's going to explain a lot of what I was saying. So earlier I was talking about the reasons I love the tires and the things I didn't really care about. First one was the grip. After 100,000 miles, I've noticed the grip has definitely decreased, obviously, but it was very, very gradual. You know, for the first 40,000 miles, I was borderline dangerous because I felt I put too much trust in my new motorcycle. It wasn't anything different. I mean, honestly, for the first 50,000 miles, 50,000 miles, they drove great and they felt like a new set of tires. I started noticing that even in dry conditions, if I would turn the wheel and then punch it at a stop sign, traction control would have to kind of catch the tires, which it never did in the first half of their life. And now it's gotten to the point to where they're about like a regular set of radials. This second thing I also loved was the weather performance. And guys, truth be told, I really haven't noticed any difference in that. The way they make the tires, they do a full tread depth, so you don't have like a tread depth with a bunch of micro grooves, and you know the micro grooves wear off in the first 5,000 miles. So the performance of the tire is just entirely different after 5,000 miles of driving, because you've basically worn all the details off the tires. Like, these tires have a full depth tread pattern. The tread goes all the way from the top to the bottom, like tractor tires. They also have this sort of conical V shape, so the idea is that if you're driving through a puddle, rather than driving your tire, hitting the puddle, and then getting a high pressure and losing traction, it sort of splits the water, kind of like a bike tire riding through a puddle, and shoots the water out the side of the tire. And that's why it's supposed to be so good in rain. That's why they're so good in snow. That's why they're all weather. You know, they have full tread depth patterns, so they drive like a normal tire in the summer. But if you hit some slush or some snow in the winter, they're shaped to where they just shoot the snow out of the side and don't cause you to lose a bunch of traction. And honestly, I really haven't noticed a lot of snow and wet weather and snow performance decrease. They've still done extremely well for me, and I really do feel like that's just because the overall shape of the tire. But I would be remiss if I didn't tell you guys that it doesn't quite have the same performance as when I started. If you followed any of my videos over the past 100,000 miles, I've talked about durability. I bust out the tire depth gauge almost every single video, and I'll show you guys like, oh, here, now we're at 8, and then I'll drive 20,000 miles, and now we're at 7.5, and it looks borderline unbelievable. But that's one thing I will say about these tires. They have just gone from 80% to 0% in the last 20,000 miles. I don't know if that was by design. They really were extremely durable for the longest time, but you know, they kind of fell off a cliff at the end of here, because I was a little bit shocked when I was measuring those a little bit earlier. I didn't know I was driving on wore out tires. And interesting enough, the negatives that I mentioned a little bit earlier have actually changed as well. My biggest problem with them, because I'm a fuel efficiency freak, is that I immediately lost some fuel efficiency on them. Now, I've seen people with EVs claiming they're losing 20% efficiency, and I've seen other people saying they don't lose any efficiency. I lost 2 miles per gallon, which the whole entire reason I got rid of the truck and got this vehicle was fuel efficiency. I've got a couple videos I could recommend you look at that I did, but I track my fuel efficiency every single tank, so I know exactly how many miles I get per tank, and then I also track it on a longer time span every oil change, every 5,000 miles. I have really tracked the fuel efficiency for this, and I can honestly say the fuel efficiency got a lot better as they wore out, so I don't know if that had to do with weight or what, but yeah, the first time I've seen 28.5 miles per gallon since I got rid of the old tires was probably about 10,000 miles ago. And I was wondering, you know, my mileage went from 28.5 to 26.7 over all distances. And now I'm seeing 28 miles per gallon over the course of a tank. The other thing, I remember, like, my big problem was that they were not cheap as well when I bought them. If you really do the math and say you pay $700 for a set of Toyos and they last 30,000 miles, or you pay $1,400 for a set of Michelins and they last 100, honestly, it was worth it. It was worth it. The value is worth it all day, every day. Mathematically, intuitively, it was just absolutely worth it. And honestly, too, as well as the noise, I haven't busted out the decibel reader in a long time, but I would hesitate to say that these tires have gotten slightly quieter as they've worn out. I really do feel like a lot of it's just they're so aggressive that they just make a lot of noise. I don't know whether that be road noise or wind resistance noise, but I do feel like the noise has gotten a lot better. So that's kind of my update for you guys. Like I said, I've driven 100,000 miles in these and they've been fantastic. I guess one of the big questions that a lot of people would probably ask me is, would I buy them again? And obviously, I'm going to be forced to reckon with that decision extremely soon here. That's a good question. Part of me wants to say, obviously, I'll never drive anything else. And one of the things I've been recommending for people is, like, if you're buying tires for a daughter who's learning to drive, or a son, or your wife, or somebody you really love, and price is no option, I almost think it would be foolish not to get these tires, because if they cost $200 more and they save somebody's life from spinning out in a storm, I mean, how can you put a price on human life? 80% of me wants to say, like, of course, there really is no other tire, and all the negatives are not a big deal. Yeah, I may have paid $500 over the life of the tires in more fuel cost, and yeah, I may have to pay a couple $100 extra over the life of the tires as opposed to getting some cheap tires, but there really would be no reason I wouldn't buy these again. I don't mean to belittle myself. I should worry about myself more, but if I was making this decision for a loved one or somebody I really cared about, it would be an absolute no-brainer. But the other side of me kind of thinks it may be interesting to get a standard tire again, just because, I mean, honestly, I'm a fuel efficiency freak, and it would be kind of interesting to test out like a super fuel efficient set of tires, just so I could spend a little bit less on gas and really track my mileage. Would I buy them again? Without a doubt. I haven't really considered it. I'm going to have to start considering it now, but I have a funny feeling that in a couple of weeks, you're going to be seeing another video. I bought the Michelin Cross CrossClimate2 tires again. I think they were a fantastic investment. I did a video about the 5 problems of Michelin Cross CrossClimate2s. It's a very popular video, and it was really kind of a waste of video because they were all nitpicky. The only one I cared about was fuel efficiency. I didn't care about the noise. I didn't care about the vibration. None of that matters to me. And if you track it over the duration of the tires, it's been even more fantastic than I could have hoped for. But those are little updates on my tires. If you're considering them, I'd love to answer any questions in the comments. Or if you'd like me to do another video, I'd love to do it for you guys. So I couldn't really recommend these tires anymore, and I think they would be a fantastic purchase for you. Give the video a like if you enjoyed this. I'll go ahead and put my playlist to other videos because I may have some questions you haven't thought about asking yet. And I would really appreciate it to subscribe because I'm going to keep bringing you guys as much value and content as I possibly can. So my name's Jake. Thank you for going on this 100,000 mile journey with me, and I appreciate you watching my video.